Hello and welcome to today's webinar, which will look at touchless claims in the insurance industry. My name is Claire Churchard and I'm the Deputy Editor of Intelligent Insurer. I will be steering us through today's session, and I'm pleased to say that I can see we've already got well over 400 people dialing in to watch this discussion from all over the world. Intelligent Insurer is a leading publication of digital content, magazines and events for reinsurers, insurers and brokers. We're delighted to be working today with Tractable, an insurtech that specialises in using artificial intelligence to streamline motor claims via touchless technology. Its AI system assesses car damage in real time using photos provided by the policyholder or assessor. Tractable has only been live with customers since late 2016, but its technology has already been embraced by insurers around the world, including major players such as Tokio Marine and Covéa. And if you'd like to find out more about claims developments after this session, and who wouldn't, have a look at our Claims Innovation USA virtual event, which is taking place in the last week of October. We have more than 25 speakers confirmed and expect 1,500 attendees. You can find a link on the events section of the Intelligent Insurer homepage. It's worth checking it out. Okay, so today's session is called Touchless Claims, Reduce Manual Touch Points to Resolve Customer Pain Points, which is obviously what everybody wants. We will be looking at how automation is transforming claims, and how that has become more important during the pandemic. Before I introduce our excellent panel today, let me emphasize that this session is interactive, so you can submit questions using the question box on your screen. We will see those and try and answer as many as we can. Okay, so now I'm going to briefly introduce our panel, and then they can each tell us a little bit more about themselves and how they're linked to the topic. So on our panel, we have Cyril Steffen, Chief Claims Officer, European Markets at AXA, Paul Dixon, Head of Claims Proposition and Market Insight at Zurich, Liz Ryan, Head of Claims Performance and Insights at Zurich, and Jan Molman, Engagement Management Director, EMEA at Tractable. So starting with Cyril, please could you tell me a bit more about yourself and your involvement and experience with touchless claims?
So hi everyone. Thanks to Claire and the team of the Intelligent Insurer to invite me today. I'm delighted to be here. I have a bit more than 24 years of working experience in international P&C operations and claims management. Since the 1st of April, I'm driving the claims transformation journey of AXA's 7 European markets in line with AXA's strategic ambition. I'm driving cross-functional collaboration across the entities. I'm very passionate about the future of claims. And today I will provide insight on what technologies are transforming the claims space and how AXA's digital transformation journey is going so far.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you, Cyril. And Paul, can you tell us a bit more about yourself, please?
Thanks, Claire. Afternoon, everybody. I've been with Zurich for just over 20 years in a variety of roles, but all the common factor linking those roles is all about the customer. So I currently head up our claims proposition for UK claims. And from a touchless claims perspective, that's a significant part of our proposition, and a significant part of our strategic ambition and direction around what we deliver for our customers. Are we there yet in a truly touchless environment? No, but in terms of the strategy and the plan and the direction in which we're going, we're absolutely heading that way. It is a significant part of our overall claims proposition.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Paul. And Liz, you next, please.
Thanks, Claire. So I head up our performance and insights team within Zurich UK Claims, and I'm part of the claims leadership team. I'm responsible for our data and analytics strategy within claims across operational performance and customer reporting. By background, I'm actually a life actuary, and I moved into P&C claims around 2 years ago. I inherited a very traditional claims MI team of claims handlers turned data science specialists. And over the last 2 years, I've significantly grown the team, bringing in new actuarial and data science skills alongside new tools to enable us to significantly move us forward in terms of the insight we can provide on our emerging claims experience and better using data and analytics to deliver our customer journey ambition, including touchless claims. More recently, I've also taken on responsibility for our people engendering claims with a focus on building the sustainable skills we need in the future and coordinating change activity to build and deliver our customer ambition.
Lovely, thank you, Liz. And Jan, finally, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your involvement with touchless claims?
Yeah, thank you, Claire, and the team for the invite. So I'm leading the engagement management function at Tractable for the EMEA region and basically be responsible for our customer engagements. So quickly about Tractable. So we are an artificial intelligence company that is focused on providing solutions for streamlining motor claims handling for leading insurance companies. We've developed a system that, based on photos, can assess the damage in real time. Our technology has been trained on millions of cases and is able to assess claims based on photos like a human expert. So currently we are working with, I think, the world's largest insurers in 13 countries, so across North America, Europe, and Asia. And some examples would be like, AGS in the UK, Tokio Marine, and France and Korea. So hopefully I can provide here some insights in what we are seeing and some examples what we are seeing with our customers regarding touchless claims and where the journey is going.
Fantastic. Well, we look forward to hearing more about that in the course of the discussion. Thank you, Jan. Okay, so to kick off, I'd like to ask Jan the first question. So the pandemic has created a new normal for everyone. During lockdown, what kind of changes have you seen in demand for AI-powered touchless insurance? And what customer behaviours are you planning for as lockdowns ease?
So I think because we're working with the major insurances to accelerate their claims, I think that gives us a pretty good insight globally on how insurers are using AI to change and simplify their claims process. I think what we are seeing at the moment, especially during COVID, is that COVID has created more urgency in the market for virtual technology. So insurers want tech that can help their appraisers, can help their shops, and in particular can provide a touchless experience to their policyholders. So for us, that is nothing new, but it's rather an acceleration of a trend that was already in play, because basically AI reduces unnecessary data collection loops and points between insurers, repairers, and policyholders. So that's obviously of particular interest during coronavirus, but it's the future anyways. So because it enables the insurance to make better decisions, offer a better customer experience. So definitely expect, even after the COVID times or the current situation, that to accelerate going forward as well.
Sure. So you think it'll just keep getting faster and faster, even as lockdown begins to ease, the world comes out of its bunker, so to speak. You don't think it'll slow down at all, the demand for this?
From our perspective, no. Why? Because especially it's a lot driven by policyholders as well. So we see a huge trend. Policyholders get more digital, or consumers become more digital. You have an Amazon, who delivers on an hourly basis. Basically, when you order something, a lot is done via phones. People are less and less willing, I think, to go to either a store or a body shop, but want to do more and more basically online from home. And I think this trend we've seen before and expect to basically continue.
Fantastic. I mean, it's got to be good, hasn't it? I mean, so Paul, can I ask you, have you seen similar changes, or have you seen other things perhaps in the demand for AI-powered touchless insurance as a result of COVID-19?
No, I think we've seen a real a positive movement prior to lockdown in terms of our customers' engagement around whether it be the ethanol portals, the ability to submit claims from a portal perspective, or the education piece around how we can settle claims quicker. So we were educating our customers around the information that we needed for them to supply it for us to make that payment and settle that claim. So we were considering other enhancements linked to the portal what COVID's done, as Jan's just alluded to, is just simply accelerated those processes. So examples would be, we had 1 or 2 portals. We've now got a suite of portals now covering major lines of business, which is on the back of what happened in COVID. There's also the introduction of live chat and WhatsApp and SMS messaging, which, you know, from Zurich's perspective was unheard of probably 2-3 years ago. But now, because of the changing dynamics of our customer base and requirements of the consumer, we have to embrace those technologies and embrace them really, really quickly. And I think in terms of what our customers expect, it's more of the same. So we're expecting insurers to innovate, expecting insurers to make that customer journey as easy and effortless as possible, and for their interaction to be meaningful at every point.
Yeah, I mean, just because people have been, you know, shielding in their homes or, you know, going out less doesn't mean that they don't want that personal interaction, does it? So it all kind of feeds into that. If you can do it over video without actually being in the physical presence of somebody, why wouldn't you?
Indeed. Claire, sorry, just one other thing. Just to add to that point, you know, the AI, the touchless claims piece, it's still about choice. So that might work for some customers, but it isn't going to work for every customer. And this is the AI and the touchless piece is a tool as part of the overall proposition. Some customers will still want to pick up the phone and have a meaningful conversation with an individual. We just need to make that point. This is all about choice and making that choice as wide and as varied for your customers as possible.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Thank you. Cyril, can I ask you what kind of changes you've seen around the demand for touchless claims during the lockdown or the pandemic or the new normal?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what has been said. We have seen similar changes. And the main effect of the crisis will be a sharp acceleration of some of the key trends already materializing before COVID-19. The most accelerated trend is the digitalization of customer and distributor journeys. For insurers, it is no longer a should have, but an absolute must have. There's simply no alternative if we want to remain relevant to our markets and answer client needs for effective interactions. And this does not mean switching now to a pure online approach. It has been said, but complementing the human touch and expert advice of distributors and companies with remote tools and seamless digital mobile-first customer interactions to make our models more flexible. For example, people were already using online services, but the current crisis has accelerated this in an astounding way, especially in the age groups that are considered less digitally savvy. For example, in the UK, AXA's General Practitioner Service, a doctor at hand, allows patients to speak to doctors online or on the phone. We had around 7,000 monthly consultations before lockdown, and now we have nearly 18,000, and many over the age of 65. So online will definitely stay. Once you've used online services, there's no going back. We have been working on this for a long time, so that puts us in a strong position to support our customers in these trying times. And at AXA, we have prioritized the rolling out of more digital tools to our customers to ensure a good digital experience and convenience, and for our customers who will increasingly use digital channels in their daily lives.
Yeah, I mean, I think your comment about there's no going back, you know, in the same way that Paul said, it's about choice. Once people know these things are available and that they're really user friendly, they can see the benefits for themselves, can't they? I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, really. Cyril, I'd like to stay with you to ask, you know, for people who are not already using a system like this, how did you create the right talent and technology infrastructure to prepare for using touchless claims?
So at AXA, we have made significant investment in digital capabilities, data, and technology over the last years. We have a real desire to strive forward on embracing technology rapidly. We see it as a real differentiator. And we got quite a broad transformational agenda at AXA. After all, if this isn't the time to transform, when is it? We are obviously on a journey through automation and digitalization, while as insurers, we have elements of the human touch for the more complex claims, as I said before, and thus can better support clients when and where they need it most. We are aware that this transition from virtual estimating to touchless claims will not happen overnight. And our first experience are very encouraging, even there is still a long way to go for everybody.
Sure. I mean, so are you having to upskill your existing workforce? Are you bringing new talent in? I mean, what's the kind of recruitment strategy? What kind of things are you doing to ensure that this kind of technology can scale up and ramp up further?
In terms of people, we're constantly recruiting new talents, I can say, and we are particularly looking for people coming from outside the insurance industry that brings some new color, some new flavor into this game. And those outsiders, let's call them like that, they really help us to get better in what we are doing, which is insurance.
Sure. And I mean, have you had to make, did you have to do much to have your technology infrastructure ready for bringing this in? Or, was it kind of already there? What kind of things did you have to do around technology infrastructure?
It took us in all the entities about 3 weeks, and almost all the staff could work from home remotely. And before, I think we wouldn't have thought that this could be possible in this short time. But I think, this whole momentum, which was transported by COVID, really made that happen. And with full speed ahead, we achieved our goals there.
I guess maybe even necessity is the mother of invention there, perhaps. Paul, if I could come to you, I mean, what would your advice be for anyone who's not already using a touchless system? How can they make sure they've got the right people with the right skills, or the right technology infrastructure?
Yeah, I think even before you get to the individuals and the skill set, you need the right infrastructure. And in terms of a claim system that underpins all of this, the claim system has got to be adaptable and flexible enough to allow touchless claims and APIs and all that automation piece to be implemented quickly and effectively. And from a Zurich perspective, that's a key area for us to basically have that system in place that allows all of that good stuff I've just referenced to happen. So once that's in place, I think then it's a matter of it's a heart and minds piece. So it's obviously why are we doing this and what does that mean? The benefit to the customer, the business, and our people. But it's also around convincing our technical claims people around touchless doesn't necessarily mean leakage, doesn't necessarily mean all of our technical governance and what we do goes out of the window. Far from it. All it means is that's built into the process up front, which allows the actual experience to the customer to be much quicker and easier and much more seamless from start to finish. So I think you need the infrastructure, you need the actual system, you've got a hearts and minds piece to win. And then the skill set you need is, where does innovation come from? Ideally, externally, clearly, but there's a cost attached to that. How do you encourage that internal innovation? And how do you encourage your staff, your people to think much more digitally? And then how do you support them in their development to develop those skills? And Liz will probably come on to talk about how we're planning to do that within Zurich. But we see that as a real opportunity around an external recruitment, but also around how do you get more out of the people you've got within the business? How can you support their inquisitiveness and their curiousness to actually make a difference to our customers?
Absolutely. I mean, Liz, actually, as we're talking about this at the moment, do you want to come in? How are Zurich, making sure that you've got the right skills with skills planning to bring a system like this in?
Yeah. So we have a group policy around sustainability, and it includes a people pillar, and that's about giving our people the skills they need for the future. And in the UK, we're really pioneering on this. We've had a number of apprenticeships. So we launched our data apprenticeship last year, which took around 20 claims handlers and about 12 people from underwriting through a level 4 apprenticeship in data. We've partnered with a number of universities to offer more advanced data science MScs and things like that to enable our people to move forward. And we're now taking that under the umbrella of Future Skills Academy, and we're about to launch an automation academy, which is going to take 8 people through robotics engineering training. So it's really about empowering our people and helping them move forward. Yes, we have brought some external people in, but again, we've tried to bring in, say, people from underwriting. My team, I brought actuarial skills into the team. We've come from elsewhere in the Zurich business to kind of, rather than recruiting in what is a very competitive market in the data science world, and insurance might not necessarily be seen as the most exciting area for a lot of the grads and things coming out. So for us, it's really about building from within and building those skills for the future with our people.
So yeah, I mean, and as you said, you know, creating the message for the graduates coming out, actually this is a fantastic industry to work in, because once people come in, they don't really leave. So, you know, I think the benefits kind of speak for themselves. Okay, thanks very much, Liz, that's brilliant. So I also wanted to ask about data strategy. So Paul, can I ask you, you know, which areas of your data strategy have helped ensure you were ready to plug automation into your claim process?
So if you think about you know, the customer feedback we get, whether that be from TMPS, whether it be from our relationship community, whether it be from complaints, repudiations, looking at all the various customer touch points we have, and what is actually telling us, and then deploying the appropriate solution based on the needs and requirements of our customers. So we've seen a massive step forward in our ability to use data and use data much more specifically and targeted in areas of our business. And as a consequence, our proposition has then been based on the information we've managed to glean. I think, you know, data is absolutely key, and there's, as in all the publications that you read, data is key. Data is what massively important. If you can use it in the right way, then you're in a massive step forward. And I think we've got some challenges, and Liz has alluded to this, no doubt, around data quality and capture, but it's absolutely pivotal. And we've made a huge step forwards in being able to use that data much more effectively.
Okay. I mean, Liz, would you like to add anything to what Paul's just said?
Yeah, so I think arguably we look at insurance companies as being the first big data users, but that can actually be our downfall, because we've captured data in a very structured way for pricing, underwriting, reserving, all these sorts of things we've historically been doing. And sometimes those regulatory constraints we put around our data don't necessarily enable us in an analytics AI type world, where you need to be looking at much wider sets of data, both internally, externally, bringing those sources together and using them in a much more fluid way, I guess, where it's a bit more trial and error to see what you can get and what you can extract from those trends. So really, it's about thinking about how you can capture data differently. We've talked about data warehouses and things for years in the life insurance, but it's almost becoming like a data ocean. And how do you actually structure out the difference between that subset of data that you need for that regulatory sort of your core actuarial type purposes and the much wider set you're going to use for analytics? And how do you bring them together in a way your users can use them and can access them, know it's accurate and that it's sourced from a good source, but equally that it doesn't necessarily have to meet the Solvency II standards that you might be doing for your actuarial reserving when you're doing analytics projects. Paul alluded to data quality issues. They are definitely an issue. You know, we know our handlers are constantly under pressure to be answering customer calls, getting through it, which sometimes means that the quality that gets captured in our systems might not be great. But again, this is a place where advanced analytics can help us. So there's a wealth of information in our unstructured data. So telephone calls, claim handler notes, emails, documents, all of those sorts of things, which traditionally wouldn't have been available to us. We can use some of these new techniques to extract those and then feed into the models to help improve our customer journey. So it's thinking about it in a much sort of wider piece. I think you need a really clear strategy on how you're going to use external data, because it's quite different to how you might be using internal data. And one of the things we've really started thinking about recently is ethics, and going beyond GDPR, but thinking, how do we want to use our customers' data to align with our customer values, and how do we make sure we've got a consistent set of principles for what we will and won't do with data that's available to us.
I mean, could you give me an example of what that might look like for you? You know, a generic example, if that's easier.
In terms of the ethics piece, or the
yes, please, yeah.
Yeah. So I think.
Sorry, Liz. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah. So I was just going to say it's really thinking that we have a bit of our business that looks at public sector things, and there are rating factors and things in there that we might choose to use that we wouldn't. So, for example, school dinners or things like that, where you might inadvertently start to apply rules and things to a subset of people that you might not want to. So it's that sort of thing of really just thinking about the societal impacts of how we're using data and whether it's driving those right impacts.
Sure. So not just taking it at face value and running with it, looking at it very much in context and the wider impacts of what it might mean.
Yeah, very much so.
Great, lovely. And Cyril, can I ask you, I mean, which areas of your data strategy, have enabled you to plug automation into your claims process? Cyril?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what has been said. So at Doxa, we have a strong conviction that leveraging data and technology in claims is our markets is really key to tackle current challenges for our businesses and our customers. And we do consider the power of data, and we have been investing in smart data since a couple of years. I mean, the effective use of data is key to using many of our claims technologies successfully. We as insurers are now connecting various sources of data and extracting value from unstructured or semi-structured data to make it useful for analytics. This is associated with an intensified reuse of data across departments to really push the entire organization forward. Data collaboration is really crucial. So we must be able to use data across departments. So overall, harnessing AI and using data-driven insights means we can do more for our customers. And I can maybe give you one example of our AI cases. What is a very interesting, sophisticated case about comparison cost of repair with cost of total loss. So a machine learning solution supports the motor claims handler making quicker and more accurate decisions. This tool captures all the relevant data from the conversation with the customer, and based on an ensemble of predictive models, compares then the costs of repair with the costs of total loss. The former is affected by the type of damage, the parts needed, the labor required, and whether the work is done by an approved repairer. The latter is usually the replacement costs minus the salvage. And the idea is to take the right decision as soon as the claim is notified, and to smooth out and accelerate the motor claims journey by providing better support to claims handlers.
And I mean, I guess that would just plug in very well, would dovetail very well with touchless claims, wouldn't it? Because if somebody's sending you a photo of some damage and then your machine learning or AI is looking at that and able to make a very quick decision, that's coming back to them within minutes, isn't it? Potentially.
Absolutely, and we're doing a lot of pilots and proof of concepts exactly in this area.
Fantastic. Okay, so I also wanted to ask Liz, could you tell us a bit about how you've identified and avoided common pitfalls when you were looking at your data strategy? Are there any things that you can kind of give other people a heads up on so that they can potentially avoid those problems themselves?
Yeah, so I think one of the lessons we learned very early on is that big bang things rarely are successful, and actually you're better to try and take small steps, accept some will fail, learn from those and move forward. And I think within those sorts of steps, there's a number of things we've learned. So one, I would say engagement with governance teams early on in projects is critical. I think we do tend to have a tendency, we'll do all this stuff and then at the last minute go and talk to our friends in governance, GDPR data, all those sorts of things. And at that stage, it can often be too late and become a big block on your thing. So engage right up front with them, help them understand the rationale for what you're trying to do and engage with them. I think you will find a lot of your stakeholders will need educating on the importance of data and data quality to make these projects work. And other insurers may be in a similar situation to us where we have a lot of legacy systems and data quality isn't necessarily at our fingertips as it might be for companies that haven't been around quite so long. And that education piece to help people understand the investment they need to make there and the time that can take to get you to where you need to be to feed these sorts of models is really, really key. But I also think we can think beyond some of our traditional approaches with data. We're using a new tool called Data Raccoon and now within my team, which is a really powerful way, and it can connect directly into our claim system to get the data rather than having to do our traditional data extracts and going around the houses to get data into us. And I guess just being really clear on how it links into your wider digital strategy around system platforms, handler uses, all those sorts of things.
Thank you, Liz. The piece about governance communication is really interesting because I could totally see how that might be left to the end and how it might throw a spanner in the works. Jan, if I can come to you now, are there any sort of common pitfalls that you've seen? Obviously, I'm not asking you to name names, but things that people can potentially avoid with their data strategies if they're trying to build touchless claims.
So I think what we saw quite a few times, especially like in large insurers, like they try to build AI systems or a lot of AI systems in-house. And what we've seen, I think, is that one, to really, build systems that are at human performance, you need a lot of data, more data usually that a lot of insurance have. And you need to build highly specialized team of deep learning AI researchers, which, it's difficult to find and it's a lot of high maintenance. And it's not a core, I think, it's not a core activity for insurances. So I think there we've seen that basically, insurances sometimes try, but struggle then to build basically solutions that are at a performance that is needed to really create value for basically the insurances.
Okay, so thinking about how it's going to create value as you're building your strategy.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, so Paul, I'd like to come to you again and ask you, in practical terms, how have you made the move from traditional hands-on processing to virtual and touchless claims, particularly, supported by remote technologies?
Yeah, and just as I said, from a purely touchless claims perspective, we're on that. I'm not strike, but we're on that journey there, and that's where our aspiration actually is. I think, as I said earlier, we've sort of done a lot in-house. So what we've done there is looked at, and that helps from an adoption and a system understanding perspective. So we mapped out the areas that lend itself to the more seamless approach, and then we've sought the technologies out to be able to deliver that. As I said earlier, it's a heart and minds piece. You've got to win your heart and minds of those who are going to use the system from a customer perspective and from an employee perspective, and you've got to make that balance between your technical and your governance procedures that sit around claims management. But to that extent, real rigor around that. But in terms of the speed of decision making and the payment side of things, we've seen significant improvement around that with the deployment of whether it be liability-based decision-making tools, whether it would be around remote access, visualization of damage, and then making that link directly through to an engineer to make a decision around total loss, or on cash and lose settlements, or around booking that vehicle into an approved repairer. Huge step forward in the ability for us to do that, but hitting an absolute customer pain point of keeping them in control of the claims process, but also the speed of response. You're taking away that human intervention around where there could be a delay because of an individual's performance, for example. You take that away, and the touchless process you put in place just removes that and just puts the customer in control of how they want to be communicated to, when, and gives them control over the end-to-end claims proposition.
Yeah. I mean, when you describe it like that, it sounds very straightforward. I mean, I was going to ask you, when you were first identifying areas that you could, make this change with, was it a case of which were the easiest areas to go to first, or was it these are potentially the most useful areas? How did you prioritize which areas to work in first?
It's a good question. I think what we did was look at where's our consistent customer pain points, and then look to address those, but then prioritize the activities you would take within those areas you've identified. And as I said earlier, it was all around speed of response and communication through the process. Consistent themes, customer feedback forever and a day about that's what customers would want to see. It's never about your technical capabilities. It's never about your expertise. Never about that. It's all about you're too slow and you don't tell me what happens. So that's where we focused our attention to sort of remove the human element of those two issues, to put the customer in control of the when, the what, and the how. And the technology we've enabled and put in place is all about that.
So Paul, I mean, I want to ask you then, if that was the goal, I mean, how is that working out at the moment? Are you seeing a speeding up of the process for customers? Has it enabled a wider rollout to take place because the success and the achievements of it are so clear? I mean, how is it working for you?
If we think about it from a customer metric perspective, how do we measure customer satisfaction? So from a TNPS perspective, we've got our highest TNPS score in claims ever. And that hasn't come about on the back. That's come about on the back of our people, but also the technologies we've put in place. So that's a real testament to the work that we've done and the technology we've implemented. I think also the feedback you get from our handlers around what we've adopted and how it makes their job easier, which allows them to concentrate more and offer more from an added value perspective, because they don't have to get involved in handling of the claim in the way that they used to, because the technology. They trust the technology, it works, and the feedback we're getting from our customers and brokers is testament to that.
I mean, it sounds like it's going very well, so that's really, really good to hear.
There's more we can do, and there's more we are doing, Claire, rest assured.
There always is, isn't there? But no, I mean, it sounds like a very positive story so far, so thank you. Jan, I mean, how have you seen clients that you're working with make the move from traditional hands-on processing to virtual and touchless claims?
Yeah, I think it's as Liz alluded to earlier, it's I think a step-by-step process as well sometimes, to basically start reducing touch points firstly, and then move towards basically like a touchless experience. We see some insurers use AI today to basically check touch points along the process and improve governance and reduce leakage. One example would be, for example, Covéa, which is the number one in France, basically, where basically in this case, the AI interacts directly with the body shops and reduces the touch points with them. And basically, a trained AI can minimize the back and forth between insurers and shops in this case, which enables then instant approval. So the shop can start the repair immediately. So I think it's all about there. The main goal is that give more autonomy, for example, to body shops, so they don't have to wait for an approval for a long time. They get it in real time. And because the approval is much faster, they can, repair like the cars faster and improve their profitability. And that's especially, I think, important at the moment in times of COVID. Yeah. I think another factor is really the feedback loop as well, where then, because a trained AI at scale can make sure that body shops are using best practices and the safest repair methods. So, you can work as an insurance with, let's say, less consistent performers to educate them and elevate them to that they operate basically at the system or at standards that you would expect. So it's more like a real-time coach basically for the network as well. So I think overall there, like you could really see this less touch points, processing of faster car, processing and repairing cars faster, but then supporting the body shops of being more consistent as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? That kind of gradual moving towards less and less hands-on processes. You can start, as you've all said, you can start to see efficiencies, and with customers having more positive experiences, it's a win-win, isn't it? Really. Cyril, I'd like to ask you. I mean, how did AXA make the move towards touchless claims?
Yeah, at AXA, we were asking ourselves, what are the success factors to get there? What kind of spirit is needed to make it happen? And that digitalizing the claims process involves, for sure, redesigning the process flow from the customer perspective, and applying technology and data to facilitate each step in the customer journey. Of course, a digital transformation requires a transversal and interdisciplinary approach, as well as cross-organizational work and collaboration to overcome silos. We strive for turning innovation into a competitive edge. So we want to foster a culture of innovation capable of harnessing multiple technologies to dynamically meet our customers' needs. We are exchanging best practices, learn from each other on what has worked and what hasn't, and build the confidence to take risks, to make a positive change in our claims function. Maybe two aspects about that: make it happen. So we start small, experiment, make mistakes, adjust it again, and co-create is very important. The business works together with tech experts. We have our IT team and business teams collaborate closely and effectively. So at AXA, we work in cross-functional communities to make sure to exchange best practices, ideas, and assets, realize opportunities and synergies, and leverage our experience across countries, teams, and functions. For example, underwriting and claims. We do rely on centers of excellence internally. For example, we have built one around automation to support our entities in scaling and accelerating robotic process automation, RPA journeys, and cost-effective automation solutions and services. And a good center of excellence for automation is very much business-driven and uses a combination of tools to drive the business agenda.
Fantastic. Thanks, Cyril. I mean, it sort of goes back what you were saying there about, don't be afraid to experiment and try things.
Absolutely.
It goes back to what Liz and I think Jan and Paul have all said. I know Liz said earlier, big bang changes are not always the answer, although, sometimes they are. But it's also good to experiment and try lots of things and not be afraid to fail. Okay, so I'd like to ask Jan about business objectives and process improvements. So Jan, did you find those kinds of things were, that you were able to bring in or implement immediately? And then once they were implemented, were they fairly scalable?
Yeah, definitely. I think maybe coming back to basically what Cyril said as well. So there's, for example, a lot of demand at the moment when it comes to F-Node solutions, really make this F-Node process more and more efficient. Like, for example, with AGS, we're really having a solution where basically AGS uses the AI to produce an end-to-end estimate during the F-Node call and is able to give a decision on repairability or total loss and the full estimate while the policyholder is on the phone. So it's a very, we talked about the human interaction with machines, what Paul said. So there's definitely this part of, the customer wants the interaction, so calls the claim handler, but then you use technology to support basically the decision-making process. And basically that leads then to, sending the vehicle down to the right channel, so either to body shop if it's repairable or to the salvage yard. So what we see is like that fits very well with the business objectives that we see in the market for a lot of insurances. So it's the end-to-end streamlining of claims, so reduce the time to make the right decision from sometimes weeks to minutes, really less touch point and higher transparency for the policyholder, which leads then, as we said, to higher customer satisfaction as well. So policyholders in this case don't have to go to the shop to get a full assessment. And I think another, especially in these times, what we see another business objective is really about flexibility for insurances. So what we've seen a lot in the market is that insurances want to protect their shop networks, for example, at the moment, because of the low volumes that the shop networks get. And this is definitely something where a system, allows you to calibrate these decisions to specific situations. In this case, then basically to support the body shop network. And that is obviously like scale, like what we've seen is scalable very quickly. So basically, we can ramp up to 100% of claim volumes in a matter of weeks or months. So it's definitely a very fast potential ramp up there as well.
Fantastic. I mean, Cyril, what's your kind of experience of implementing business objectives and processes immediately and then scaling them up?
Yeah, I mean, COVID-19 has definitely accelerated the push to automate. Maybe a few examples. RPA, as I mentioned before, we identify areas that are ripe for RPA, such as payments and border rows, wherever we find volume. And we avoid there wasting human capital on mundane tasks. Maybe some use cases that we got. One is processing and extracting standardized data, for example, payment process or indexing. Another one is sending SMS to clients after car breakdowns in the roadside assistance, or the fully automated repair handling of mobile and tablet claims with an external partner. A very interesting field is also computable contracts. Maybe I can share an example of the possibilities that can be unlocked by computable contracts. We were developing a computable contract tool to meet the needs of our call center agents. The end game was to gain time and accuracy in the processing of coverage check tasks. Using it was possible to replace the static questions with a dynamic flow. The final result is a web interface, allowing each agent now to work more efficiently by going through a dynamic set of questions with the customer. At the end of this critical path, the system provides the agent with a clear answer relative to the coverage of the claim, instead of having to go through each individual file regarding and interpreting contracts. Agents are now able to determine whether any given situation is covered in a matter of seconds.
I mean, that's quite impressive, isn't it?
It's a cool case.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it is. I mean, so we've actually got a couple of questions come in, so I'm just going to go to those. Somebody is asking, what is the customer feedback with the introduction of technology, and have you reduced the workforce, i.e. have you seen any direct cost saving? I think, Liz, are you all right to answer that one?
Yeah, sure. So in terms of the customer feedback's been brilliant. We introduced a chatbot last year, and the NPS scores for that were through the roof. And through lockdown, we've had a lot of really positive customer feedback around the EasyClaim app that we've been using, which is very similar to what was just being described around motor claims and speeding that up through. So generally, feedback from customers is really, really great. On the expense issue, I think, yeah, it's a clear area that needs to be addressed in these things. Within Zurich Claims, we went through a large transformation project, which completed last summer, and that was about streamlining a lot of our processes, our claims offices, and our people, and benefits were realised then. And now we see it more, though, about being aligning to delivering customer excellence and reskilling those people. So not necessarily, but it's giving our people the time and capacity to spend time on the things that add value to the customers, rather than doing the manual things that a robot can effectively do for them. So yeah, for us, it is more about at redeploying those skills into different areas rather than making headcount counts.
Of course. I mean, I guess in some respects, bringing in technology like this frees up other members of the team to do other things.
Exactly.
Potentially more interesting things.
Yeah.
Dare I say. And also more value added things. So yeah, it's potentially a very good thing. So we have had another question, and I think I'm going to go to Paul for this one. With digital and AI initiatives accelerating, how are you ensuring that you do not lose sight of customer relationships being impacted, and that customers still value that direct human contact and interaction?
I mean, I think I referenced it earlier around this is about choice. But all the technology, all the AI, RPA, they're all enablers to delivering a better service and a better experience for our customers. They're not in replacement of the opportunity to still have an engaging and interactive conversation with a customer. And from Zurich's perspective, we're absolutely mindful of we don't lose that opportunity to continue to engage with our customers. And to that extent, we've invested in our market-facing claims relationship consultants to actually put more people out into the marketplace to encourage those conversations and to deliver more for our customers. But the other part of this is how does it fit into the overall claims proposition? So I've said they're an enabler and they're there to support the claims proposition. But how do they fit into the overall end-to-end customer proposition, of which claims is a significant part, and where face-to-face relationships and interaction is pivotal to those wider relationships? And if you're putting technologies in place that don't add any value, they might add value from an operational perspective, but from a customer relationship perspective, they don't, then we'd always look to question that. And we go back to the point, what is it we're trying to achieve? What difference will this make? And what will it mean for our customers and our brokers? That's always our starting point. And I think you've got to hold yourselves accountable for the solutions you put in place. What difference does that make to our end customers? And is that reducing their ability to have an engaging conversation with us or engage with us in a different way? If it is, then why are we doing it?
Well, absolutely. And I know Liz mentioned just beforehand about chatbots. There was a time when people were not that keen on them, but actually as they've become much more user friendly, they're much more accurate. They've really stepped up, haven't they? In terms of it's like speaking to a real person. So, actually, I think people have really started to embrace them. I mean, just from personal experience, I quite enjoy a chatbot question and answer on occasion. But yeah, you're absolutely right. If the customers are not getting something from it, then it might not be quite there yet, so to speak. Okay, so we've actually got another question. So I'm going to ask Liz again, if that's okay. Oh, here we go. So what do you think the future claims process will look like from an insurer's perspective, and what will change for claims handlers?
So this is something we've been looking at recently, and actually we've looked at it more from our customer's perspective as to what that customer journey will look like for them, and then it feeds through into our roadmap on digital and change. And I see it very much as sort of in three levels, that you will have your straight-through processing, zero human touch, where you've got your robotics and AI solution that takes those from end to end. You'll then have your claims that will fall out of those, and that may be customer choice. You may have vulnerable customers that even if it is a relatively simple claim, it's not appropriate for them to, and they need the human touch. And then finally, you'll have your expert large claims, your technical losses, which will feel hopefully a little bit different today, in that we can start to use automation to remove some of the manual processing, but will ultimately, because of the nature of those larger risks, still need very bespoke human touch in those. And that may also apply to some of, we have a lot of sort of private client business within Zurich, which is high net worth people. They'll want that project managed kind of service from their insurance. It's very difficult to the sort of more traditional retail level. So that's kind of how we sort of see the future claims journeys looking for our customers. And for our people, I think we touched on it before, it's very much about giving them value add jobs. They're no longer going to be uploading 20 different documents and doing all this manual processing and things, because you can get a robot to do that. They will be able to use their claims brain, their empathy, the human touch to bring value. So we feel that actually from both a customer and an employee experience, that claims process of the future is something we all aspire to.
Fantastic. Cyril, I think you would like to come in on one of the questions. I'm not sure which one it was. So if you'd like to tell me which question it was.
I can maybe add something to the same question. I really think that the offering of excellent customer contact channel solutions supported by intuitive digital processes with real-time interaction will result in a much leaner and faster customer experience. So the customer can contact the insurer whenever they want, in whichever kind of way and channel they choose, and use digital claims status tracking tools to get informed about the steps involved in processing the claims, as well as the expected time frame. The customer will then have much more transparency, as they will always know what is the status of my claim, what happens next, what are my options. It is equally important to ensure that customers and claimants have a good experience with multiple electronic payment modalities at the end of the claims journey, and maybe further seamless handoffs across the communication channels are crucial. So, for example, customers who start their journey online but want to talk to a claims handler offline should be able to do so without having to repeat steps or information. And this functionality requires that all IT system interfaces follow an identical structure and logic, for sure. Having said that, and I agree to this, the human touch is more important than ever, especially in complex claims. Thus, the voice channel will remain relevant for customers requiring a well-balanced omnichannel approach.
Fantastic, thank you, Cyril. I mean, we have had a few more questions come in, but I think we'll save those, because I've got one final question that I'd like to put to the full panel, and then we'll take some more questions. Okay, so I'd like to ask Jan, actually. Jan, what other benefits or challenges have you seen from touchless claims, and what are the longer term benefits or developments that you expect to see?
So taking a step back and talking about, because we're talking about a lot about technology and AI, I think what we've seen, what is sometimes overlooked, is it's really the most important is really, as we alluded as well, like to use the time of experts or claim handlers really sensibly. I think from our perspective, what we've seen is that with a lot of insurances like that we speak with, like in North America, in Asia, or in Europe, we hear similar things, which is insurers aren't sure where the next generation of appraisers, for example, or experts come from. And I think given like aging workforces, there's really this fear, or basically this question of like, where do we find appraisers, experts to replace those who are going to retire? So here the question is really about like to ensure that the appraiser's time or the claim handler's time is not wasted and they're used as efficient as possible. So in terms of like long-term, I guess augmenting rather than replacing the experts that we see in insurance. So definitely long-term, I think there's like this part of like, how do we keep the knowledge of our experts within the company, and there's obviously where technology can help as well.
Fantastic. I mean, Jan, just as a kind of supplemental general question, I mean, what kind of responses have you seen to this technology from insurers, like from a provider and technology insurtech point of view, more generally, and how do you think insurers perceive it?
Good question. I think what we've seen is that the technology is adopted in varying speeds. Not all insurers are embracing it, I think, the technology with the same urgency. Some potential, I think, like reasons are that they've tried certain technologies in the past and it wasn't, at a certain performance yet, or they're trying it in-house or building it in-house. So I think that's definitely what we're seeing. We see, obviously, as we've discussed in the beginning, that there is over the last, let's say, half a year, and especially in particular with COVID, there's an accelerated trend, which I think will continue. but definitely, like, I think like we see this like too. We have some in the market, some very, very innovative insurances who really want to try and then see already the benefits and get the benefits from new technology, and some which I think are still a little more cautious and are looking into like more slowly.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, you know, from to have your perspective is very interesting, because I'm sure a lot of insurance businesses and you know, everyone in the sector is looking more and more at this and how they can use it. So thank you, that's really interesting. Okay, so we are into the Q&A section now, and I appreciate we've already done some questions. So I'm going to ask, I think, let's ask Cyril, if Cyril doesn't mind. Could you talk a bit about how the underwriting functions within your companies have benefited from the enhanced claims data?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's very important that really the underwriting and the claims functions are working hand in hand together, and then that we really learned out of claims and experiences. I can maybe give an example of things that we were analyzing in the fleets area. So we were really making very decent reports for our fleets managers, and then they were handing out those reports about the actual claims data were handing out then to the clients, so that the fleet manager of the clients could also learn from those claims that happens in a fleet, and to get a better understanding what was happening in this account.
That's thank you, Cyril. That's really interesting, seeing as I just dropped that on you with no notice. And I think Liz, you're going to answer the next one for us. So somebody's asked, how are you able to use this technology to manage claimants' fraud, potentially fraud?
Yeah, so fraud is a particular issue. You know, you think about straight through processing, what does that mean to make sure you're not exposing yourself to undue fraud? But actually, it's again an area where analytics AI is incredibly powerful, and there's a large number of tools our fraud team are using, sort of almost at the front end before you go through into those settlement processes to check for fraud. So things like looking across past data sets, looking at past claims, other insurers, things like that sort of stuff. We've got technology that does things like look what people have been up to on Facebook to help kind of understand the circumstances of the claim and where they've been, auto number plate recognition. Lots of things are actually accelerating, helping us to prevent more fraudulent claims. So I would say fraud is actually probably one of the first use cases you can use around some of these technologies to really start. And you need that in place really before you can start to move on to some of the touchless claims things, because you need that up front to be able to check the validity of the claim before it can pull forward. One of the tools we're using actually has sort of a red, amber, green light on it, so that it will flag to handlers whether if it's green, it's an opportunity for a straight through process. Amber and red ones, it will either ask for a bit more information or tell them that it's red and should be sent over to our fraud team for further investigation. So it is a key element of these sorts of tools, and getting it right is really important.
Fantastic, thank you. Paul, I'll just quickly ask you, are you all right to stay with us for a few more minutes, or do you need to head off? Have you got something you need to do quickly?
No, I'm okay to stay, Claire, thank you.
Sure. I know, because I know lots of responsibilities are going on during lockdown. Everybody's doing about 5 or 6 different things at the same time. Okay, well, thank you for hanging on with us just for the next sort of 10 minutes, because we are due to finish at 4:15. So just got a bit more time for some questions. Okay, so we've had another question come in, which is, while a lot of investment will happen in technology and infrastructure, AI, machine learning, etc., how cost efficient are these investments vis-a-vis the savings, or is it just about improving customer experience? Would anybody like to comment on that? Jan, can I ask you?
Yeah, sure. I think it's both, to be honest. I think as we've discussed, I think, or like everyone I think might agree, it's like customer experience, or like the customer should be in the center of basically everything that we do when it comes to like tech enablement and so on. So definitely it's like a main focus, especially when it comes to touchless claims, new ways of interacting with policyholders and so on. Savings or like benefits, monetary benefits, is definitely something that we see is always on our customers' minds as well. Obviously, because it's it's like mainly listed companies, so it's definitely a focus. I mean, what we've seen is though that usually investment in technology, or speaking from our perspective, obviously, now working with us and basically there's always like a positive return on investment. So if insurers are very much focused on this, okay, what is the positive return on investment of each single either investment or external project that they're doing, basically. But I think at its core, it's a lot, and it's moving more and more towards customer experience.
I mean, Jan, this is probably a question for you again, actually, because although I know Tractable concentrates on motor claims at the moment, I mean, do you have any plans to bring in touchless claims for life and health insurance, or any other lines of business potentially?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. So we are at the moment mainly focused on motor. So that's definitely our core product offering at the moment. However, we get a lot of inbounds and feedback from our customers, so mainly insurance companies, who basically ask us to look at different verticals. So that could be like home insurance, for example. But basically, you have a lot of need for especially like photo-based systems that streamlines the claims handling. So short answer is yes, basically working with customers to look at different verticals as well.
Okay, fantastic. So, I mean, it looks like this technology is just going to be across everything at the moment, and more in the future. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have at the moment. So I'm just going to ask the panel. I mean, are there any? Have you got any final thoughts that you'd like to share about touchless claims in general? Where you think it's heading for you as a business?
I mean, I'll go, Claire, if you don't mind. I think it goes back to the benefits and challenges question. The biggest thing we've seen is the cultural shift. Insurers are traditionally, they have that image of the traditional grey-haired insurance man who's not very cutting edge and is very sensible and safe. And I think, from a COVID perspective and before that, it's that cultural shift to embracing change and that ability to make decisions quicker. And I think sort of referenced it earlier around, learning fast, failing fast. That approach now goes right through Zurich as an organisation, and no doubt the same for Cyril and for Jan. That ability to look for an opportunity, and then if it doesn't work, learn from it and move on. I think that's a real benefit of what's happened. I think from a challenge perspective, there's so many initiatives, there's so many solutions, there's so many suppliers. The challenge is identifying the most appropriate one that's going to address the biggest need you have for your customers and your business, and not necessarily being attracted to the most new and shiny, which intends to happen. And I think it's whatever you deploy, you've got to think about it wider than just that part of the journey. It's around what does it make to the wider customer experience and the wider end to end. And we have decided around whatever you deploy, will it be used? Is it useful? And is it usable? You should ask those questions of yourself beforehand. And what do we expect to see? Yeah, I mean, we've got aspirations to drive through a significant percentage of our first party motor and property claims by straight through, a significant percentage, and touchless claims and the technology in play allows us to achieve that ambition.
Fantastic. I mean, has anybody else got any sort of final thoughts they'd like to share about where this area of technology is heading?
Yeah, I can maybe conclude with 3 points. So first is really an integrated digital journey from purchase to claims. becoming more of a necessity now than an advantage in the increasingly competitive market. And the second is that we really strive for the orchestration of the full process automation. Automating means then more of the claims process that will allow us then to better serve our customers, as you mentioned before, make really life easier for our customers and enable us to offer faster and more comprehensive services to our clients. And maybe third, the smart use of data and analytics reduces the manual touch points and significantly speeds up the claims process, makes our decision making much more transparent, and the experience of the customer dealing with the insurer much more easier.
Fantastic. Thank you, Cyril. And I didn't thank Paul before, so thank you, Paul. I mean, Jan or Liz, would you like to share any final thoughts?
From my perspective, I think Paul and Cyril have really well summed up, so nothing really to add.
Lovely, thank you. And Jan, just to give you the opportunity, unless everyone's already covered everything.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah. I think what we've seen is really COVID has accelerated, I think, existing trends to digitization. I think that came out today as well. I think it's really, insurance is really increasingly should focus on, how to increase the customer experience. I think is a big thing there, which I expect like there will be an increasing focus going forward. And then because Paul mentioned the challenge with tech, so I think these days there is a lot of smoke and mirror. And a lot of hype words, and it's quite difficult sometimes for insurances to really, look through it and get a good picture. So there, I would just say, just test the technology, do a quick test on live data or, a live process and see if it works. That's usually the best way of getting a good view on, okay, what is the technology, what can it achieve, and what is basically the return when I invest in this technology.
Fantastic. I mean, so it sounds like we've still got quite a lot to see from this area of technology. It's definitely still got plenty of legs in it. And obviously COVID, although it has been a very difficult time for the world, it has a silver lining in that it has accelerated some developments that perhaps, we really needed as a society, touchless claims, more digital use, those things are very beneficial for lots and lots of people. Okay, well, unfortunately, we are running out of time now. So I would just like to say thank you to our panelists, Liz, Paul, Jan, and Cyril. And thank you to you, the audience, for joining us for today's discussion on touchless claims. I encourage you to join us for more interactive insight in the future and to check out our newly launched InsurTech Lounge and Reinsurance Lounge communities. The InsurTech Lounge and Reinsurance Lounge offer more expert discussions and interviews, as well as the opportunity to network with industry professionals. So thanks for joining us and see you again soon, hopefully. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.